Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black Link Magazine. I am your host, Invalette Sunshine, and I'm so excited to be here. I have an exciting interviewee, and I'm so glad that you were able to make it. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Black Link Magazine. I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the world. Tell them who you are and what you do.
Well, I have an entertainment and sports management company for the past 26 years, Chartown Entertainment. I'm also a former record label exec, vice president of marketing, as well as best-selling author of the book Just One Thing, Foreword by Mike Epps. And so that's in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah. So when I was looking and searching, I was like, oh my God, what don't she do? Let's start there. You do so many amazing things. So kudos to you. And I want to just say the reason that I really wanted to connect with you. I started looking at some of your YouTube channel, your YouTube videos, and you talk about life changing and being better than you were yesterday and all these positive things and putting positive out in the air. And I live by that. Black Link Magazine, we put God first and we treat everybody with kindness. And that's it. And I was like, gosh, I just love what she's doing. I got to talk to her. So, of course, we were in the room together, moderator with Auntie Jackie. And you were in there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get in her DM. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I want to first talk about the book. I want to know about Just One Thing. Tell me what inspired that. Just the title alone, I'm like, okay, what else? And I was looking at your kind of introduction to the book, right, on YouTube. And one of the ladies said, I started reading, I couldn't put the book down. So tell us about Just One Thing.
A lot of people, I've gotten so much fan mail, and it was really overwhelming because, the book started selling, not just, selling out across the United States, it started selling out internationally. So I'm looking at the people that work with me. I'm like, oh my God. I have a really small team, and they're so dedicated to making sure Chartown Entertainment does what it needs to do. But I was just so excited because you don't know when you put out something that's yours for the first time, because for the past 26 years, I've negotiated deals for other people. I've pushed other people's projects, other New York Times best-selling authors and playwrights and producers and multi-platinum, producers and over 300 comedians. And so when you put out something that's yours, it feels like your baby. And so you don't know how people are going to react or whatever, but I prayed about it like I do everything else because I know I can tell a great story. But it wasn't coming out of me, and so I speak for a living. And so I couldn't get it all together. I had 12 horrible pages after trying for weeks to pull it, spit out a book, and so I called Carl Weber and I called Omar Tyree and I don't remember, I called Zane and some, people I work with who are in the literary field, and they were giving me all their advice. I still couldn't get it together. And I prayed. I said, God, I need you to do just one thing one more time. And I looked up 3 months later, I had a book. And so I always say God wrote that book because when I went through it with my master editor, it felt like I was reading it for the first time. And so Just One Thing is a series of defining moments in my life that led to me fulfilling my purpose, being that which God ordained for me to be. And when I say purpose, I'm saying that thing that's so innate that people respond to it before you do. And so just constantly looking for their purpose. And, I think I'm supposed to do this, but they're always looking at somebody else and thinking that should be their life. And they're like, that might be my purpose. I'm going to go be Beyonce. I'm going to go be Jay-Z. I'm going to go sell albums out the trunk like so-and-so. You know what I mean? And they have this, but their purpose is always tied to something that's already happened. And I always say, you hasn't happened yet. You're the blueprint for your own success. You're the blueprint for that which you've been ordained. There's a place in the universe that is designed only for you with your name on it. So it hasn't happened. You can't look over here and say, that's what my life is going to look like. And so I had been through some painful things at a very young age, right out of college. It was some things that devastated me that I may not have healed from yet, all these years later. But back then, I was so open to whatever God had for my life. I prayed and I said, God, I said, can you please move me where you want me to be? Can you please show me what I need to do? And I was like, maybe it's because they said it's not what you know, it's who you know. Maybe I need to know the right people. Maybe you could open up new relationships. And that day, my life started to change. And I talk about that in the book, what happened immediately after that prayer. And then I talk, by chapter 3, I've had an epiphany of I heard God's voice, and people are like, what does God's voice sound like? God's voice sounds like yours, but it's calmer and stiller and more certain than you could ever be on your own. It's this calm, still voice that speaks loud and clear in the silence. And so I was like, I turned to my friend who was with me at the time when I heard this voice. I said, I think I'm supposed to be in the entertainment industry. And so he was like, doing what? So I was like, I don't know. God didn't tell me that part yet. He just said, I'm going to be in the entertainment industry. I said, I think I might be working with comedians. And so I didn't know any entertainers. I didn't know anything about entertainment. I had by that time, 23 years old, I had an industrial engineering undergrad, double mathematics and business. I had a master's in engineering, master's in business management, concentration in contract law, and was working full time as an engineer designing fuel tanks and collapsible water tanks for the troops and underlined pipelines, a tactical petroleum terminal that gets fuel to the troops. I was designing that. That's what I was doing at 23 years old. And talking about I'm getting ready to go in the entertainment industry. I don't know anybody at all.
Night and day.
So, what'd you say?
That's night and day, entertainment, engineering.
And so I was like, this is a horrible epiphany, but I believed God. And so God started ordering my steps, and I would hear him do this, do that, do this. And so that's really how Just One Thing starts to heat up, because I'm following God's instructions and the unthinkable is starting to happen. Unimaginable meetings, unimaginable chance phone calls, chance encounters. So those are the series of Just One Things that are changing my life suddenly and immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and during that time, I met my mentors. So it's been 3 months of God speaking to me. I met my mentors. I met Robert Johnson, who was president and CEO of BET. And unexpectedly, the book talks about how that happened. Unexpectedly, I met the late Paul Mooney. He passed away today, who was my mentor for 25 years, one of my dearest friends. And it was uncanny. And our relationship, our friendship that spawned that night I met him. I talk about that, but there's a whole chapter dedicated to Paul Mooney, because it was like I was scared of him. I was intimidated because he didn't seem friendly at all. And I was like, so I knew the night that he was going to be in the building. I'll say that. So if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. I knew the night he was going to come into the building where I was. But I was like, I said, God, please let him say something to me, because I can't imagine what I would say to this man. And he seemed like he wouldn't be friendly if I did say something. We ended up talking 3 hours that night. The first night we met in the corner of a comedy club.
Wow.
And he told me that night, he said, if you need me, I'll be there anytime you call. I work for you for free. And this is not Paul Mooney now. This is Paul Mooney 25 years ago at the height of his career, writing for Richard Pryor and, Red Fox, and even years later, Roseanne Barr, and, creating Homie the Clown. This is Paul Mooney at his height saying, I will work for you for free. And so I was just so overwhelmed. Like, this is like the godfather of comedy. I just watched him do 3.5 hours on stage effortlessly. And so I'm like, who can stand there and just talk for 3.5 hours and killing it? Nobody would leave. It was standing room only. Nobody moved. This is Paul Mooney at the height of his career. And I'm standing there like, my God, I'd never seen anything like that before. Yes. It was so masterful. Yeah. And he had them like in the palm of his hands. He had this deep voice, and then he would almost bring his voice down to a whisper sometimes as he's delivering like the punchline of what he's saying. And they're just a captive audience every time he performed for the better part of almost 2 decades. Wow. I got to see that up close and personal, because we continued that friendship for over 2 decades. Every time we saw each other, every time we were in the same city, We would be in the corner of that venue talking for 2-3 hours after he came off stage, and nobody's going to throw Mooney out. So they just standing there mad, waiting to close the
Yeah, he's
venue.
done talking.
So, so
It's amazing. I believe in hearing from the Lord, but the key to that is that I feel you have to have a relationship, and it is that soft, still voice, right? And you'll know if you have the relationship with him, you'll know. And at that point, you have to be obedient. And it
exactly.
was destined for you to meet the people that you met because God said so. He appointed that. I believe that.
Marva, I always say, and it's the mantra of my book, destiny is when the unexpected meets the inevitable.
Oh,
And so people are like, well, how do you know? You don't know. And it's probably best that you don't. But destiny is when that unexpected thing meets what's inevitable for your life. And so that's destiny.
And it's,
And so I didn't see that coming. None of it. None of the relationships I started to talk about, how I got some of my first clients, how God started performing miracles around me. And I'm just standing there watching. He just allowed me to be part of the vessel. And so that's what my book is about how when I trusted God with the thing that meant the most to me. Because like most people, their job is paramount for them. Their job is bigger than their family because their job facilitates their family. So the people's biggest fear is really not losing their family, it's losing their livelihood and their job and their source of income, because that ends everything around you. You don't eat, you don't have nowhere to sleep, you don't have no place to keep your family. So people's job is paramount. So I gave up my job because God said, I'm about to move in your life. And everybody thought I was crazy. And sometimes when God speaks to you, I think about so many biblical verses and so many parables where people thought people were just straight nuts when they do the unthinkable. And people are like, wait, God told you to do what now? I mean, so that's what I was met with, back then. And so I had a house. By the time I was 24, right before I turned 24, I got my first house. I had a car. I'm making close to 6 figures. And this is 20 something years ago. And so I was like, God said he's moving me in that direction. And to walk away from that and not know what God is going to do next is the ultimate just one thing, and how God stepped in and made the miracles happen.
Have faith and saying, okay, God, I heard you. And when you ask him, be careful what you ask for. Because something should show me, and he'll show you. He'll show you.
I tell you, people, faith isn't faith until people say until it's all you're holding on to. No, faith isn't faith until God has sent you in a direction and the water is up to here. And you're like, God, it feels like I'm going to drown, but I know you didn't bring me this far to leave me. That's faith, and the moment, even though you can't breathe, the moment you say, I trust you, then you're delivered. The moment you trust him with your whole heart, you're delivered, because God's not going to let you drown.
Gosh. Okay, let me gather my senses here. This is deep. I love it. So I want to go back to purpose, because you're right. A lot of time people miss their mark because they're looking at other people. They want to be, and I had a problem with that when I was younger. I had to grow and mature, and like, I can't be anybody but who God created me to be. And what my purpose is for me. What your purpose is for you. And a lot of people miss it because they're saying, like you said, I want to be like that person. They were successful. They went through that. So if I do exactly what they did, I'm going to get it. It's not true. What you're going to get is what God has for you.
I think that the thing that God created you to do is so specified to you. I think sometimes people spend a lifetime, they're like, it's hard, failure is inevitable. No, failure at what you're not destined to do is inevitable. That's the end of that. You know what I mean? People always say failure is inevitable before you succeed. No, it's not. I've never failed in the entertainment industry, not because of me, but because of God. People are like, I know it's hard. No, it's not. It's like breathing. This is where God put me. This is what I'm destined to do. I was born for this. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the way it should feel when you're fulfilling that thing God has for you to do. I made a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of failures doing what I wasn't destined to do. Because it's not even about the entertainment industry. When I say I haven't failed, I'm just being me, who God created me to be. And so how can I mess up being Char? Like, I defied the laws of the universe if it's hard being me. If it's hard for me to walk in the path God appointed just for me, if that's hard, I'm defying the laws of the universe. I'm defying everything that even leads to there is a God. If I can mess up being that which I was created to do. Now I can mess up being Marva. I can mess up decide, I had an epiphany. I need to start a magazine tomorrow. I can mess that up. I could fail. Nobody's buying it. But anything that God has set forth through me has never failed. And this is where he put me. I'm not in the entertainment industry. I'm not of it. I'm in it. You understand what I mean? Like God positioned me here. This just happens to be the arena where God said, I'm going to use you. That's why I stand out different than other people. You know what I mean? I'm not seeking anything. There's nothing I'm going to gain from being in the entertainment industry. This is just where God positioned me to prosper. That's where God positioned my ministry, if you will. I knew a long time ago that I was different than other people in the entertainment industry. I knew I walked differently. I knew I spoke differently, but I knew God put me there. And so no one's ever questioned, like, who are you? You understand what I mean?
Yes.
When God puts you there, you're prepared, and sometimes you feel ill prepared when God's about to do the unthinkable in your life, the unexpected in your life. You always feel, I was like, I don't know about entertainment. But that's the same way, if you think biblically, Moses felt about going to deliver the Israelites. I can't speak, I stutter. What are you talking about? I can't speak for somebody. But not only did God make a way, he prepared the way because Pharaoh was expecting him when he got there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I talk about in my book, where my mindset about walking in my destiny changed. When God has something for you, not only does he prepare you, he prepares the people for you. So when you get there, they're expecting you. So as those unexpected moments started happening, I wasn't afraid to walk through any door in entertainment. There was no ceiling. There was no upper floor. I don't know what the bottom floor looks like. And that's why I tell people it's very possible to start at the top in that which God is destined for you. You start at the top. Why you starting at the bottom? And that's what God created for you. What you starting at the bottom for? You're trying to work your way through something that ain't meant for you.
Yeah.
Or there's something in your ministry that's on that lower level, but you're really already at the top because they see it as soon as you get down there to the lower level. They're like, you don't belong down here.
Yeah, it's not where you belong.
Like, what you doing down here?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So I interviewed Percy Beatty the other day, right? And he talked about kind of that same thing, that while he was a preacher's kid, he was in the gospel realm of things, right? But he also kind of went over into the secular, is what they named it, right? The secular. But what he said is that music is music. And God prepared him for that moment. Like he was destined to be in the music business, was playing the piano at 3. But when he went over to the secular music, it wasn't that he was going to be worldly. He was going to do music, what God had prepared him for to do. The same piano keys are in gospel are the same piano keys in secular. So it's kind of like when I'm destined to do, and when God signs me up for it, when God blesses it, I'm supposed to be doing it. Whether it was the gospel or whether it was the R&B, whatever.
To him that is pure, all things are pure. So when God positions you in that space, he has a message. He has something for you to do.
That's it. So I got to get the book. You guys, if you guys feel anything like I'm feeling, go get this book. Just one thing. And I like how you said, okay, God, if you just do this one thing, right? And then it just explodes before you could even get your hands on, before you could even read it. Internationally.
Internationally. I mean, you don't know, and you don't know what's going to happen when you release a project. It's one of the most trying, challenging things I've ever done, but one of the most rewarding things. And even in selling the book, that was destined. People were asking me about a book for 25 years, like the balance of my career. Like, I'm not talking just people in the entertainment industry. The voice just kept getting louder, and I kept saying no louder. And so when I was 23, 24 years old, just coming into the entertainment industry, and people were like, when's your book coming out? And these are strangers at the store. They just pick up a conversation. People start talking to you. They're like, oh, so what do you do? I said, well, I just started working in the entertainment industry. And I would tell them, first I was an engineer. And then, we just make small talk. And they were like, wow, when's your book coming out? I was like, I'm not working on a book. And so, I mean, I'm looking like, well, what notice did you get? I mean, I'm in the grocery store. I'm like, I'm not working on a book. So it kept getting louder as the years went on. I remember I was with one of my friends who's the vice president of programming for XM Sirius. And he had urban programming for XM Sirius. And so he said, yo, when's your book coming out? Like in the middle of a conversation, it wasn't about anything, related to that. So I said, I'm not writing a book. And so I said, a lot of people keep saying that to me, and they've been saying it for years. I said, but I feel like I got to have like a wow factor or something. He said, what's the wow factor? Something that makes me go wow at the end of the book. And so I'm cleaning up what I said, but it was something to that effect. At the end of the book, I got to impress myself. So I was like, I haven't done anything to impress myself in 20 something years. And I said, it just feels natural. It feels like God decided to use even me. He's like, almost everybody from the political realm to the sports industry to, you work with professional athletes, you've been blessed to work with, everybody from like the Mayweathers to negotiating NFL commercial deals to, working with comedians. And, he said, you just have a different take though. He said, you don't have the industry take, you have the human take. Like people act like themselves around you. They're humanized around you. So they don't seem like celebrities. And just that perspective of the industry, he said, I think would be like amazing to people. And I was like, no. So even after that spell, like, no. And so my mama was like, I'm just your mother, but I think you could write a couple of books. And I was, no. I said, I don't think that's what God has for me. And so one conversation that changed it for me, I was speaking to a comedian, and a lot of them called me, just to talk or just to vent or just to sound off. And whatever God allows me to say evidently changes lives, and so we were talking for a couple of hours. I gave him whatever God was sending through me, clearly, because I don't remember the conversation, what I said specifically. But he said, you know what, if you wrote a book, I promise you I will read that. I will buy it in a heartbeat. And so I was like, is God trying to tell me to write a book? I mean, after 25 years. And I still was like, nah. So I had prayed.
God has us to do what we think we should be doing. He got something else in mind.
Right. Let me share this with you because I have a 501c3, right? In addition to my entertainment company called CTE Vision Foundation Incorporated. So back in the day, I produced one of the largest, probably the largest music conference that ever come to the DC area. Wow. And after that, and during that, my record label, Music Days and everything, I realized that there were so many uneducated people on the industry, but they wanted to be in it with their whole heart. So I made my mission to educate. I come from 3 generations of educators. So I made it my mission to educate, to teach people well enough, to help people learn stuff well enough so they could teach it if they wanted to. Like, that's how intricate, I am about educating clients and people around me. I've never wanted it to be a secret education. Right. You know what I mean? So when I did that, it made me realize one night I just had this epiphany. I said, I want to have a foundation, some legacy that I leave where it perpetuates and continues to educate years after I'm gone and continues to inspire young people and build vision. And so I was like, that's what I'm gonna call it, the Vision Foundation. Wow. And so I thought about that 20 years ago. And for the better part of 14 years, I wrote down the vision statement that night. I wrote down the purpose that night 20 years ago. Right. And my ex-boyfriend was an attorney, and I was like, well, let me talk to him, see if he'll help me. And he really didn't help the way I needed him to help. And I couldn't get footing, and so 14 years have passed. I couldn't get footing on it. And I was like, and I believe that's God, 7 is God's number. So my life seemingly seems to happen in 7. So that 14th year, I was like, I thought about it in passing. I was like, not my will, but your will, God. Not my timing, but your timing. Your timing is perfect. And I just believe that. And so God knows I'm not going to ask for help. God knows I love giving help, but I'm not going to ask for it. I don't know what it is about that, but I'm not going to ask for help. And so God knows you when he's about to direct something in your life. So he knows how to work you. And so one night I had a dream about my grandmother who had passed away. And so I'm not one on social media to ask for advice, but something in my spirit was like, ask the people on social media about interpreting that dream because it's bothering you.
Right.
You want to know what she said, what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first time, I got on social media and posted something that was semi-personal. I said, does anybody interpret dreams? I said, I had a dream that I'm trying to figure out. If you interpret dreams, DM me.
Right.
And so one person DM'd me. It was a person from back in high school. I hadn't seen that person in years and years and years. Mm-hmm. I told her what I've been doing, and I said, so what you been doing? She said, I developed 501c3s from concept to fruition. And so I said, you do? I said, like you have, I said, oh, I have to, if you did it for me, I'd have to have administrative oversight, like just review documents, like you do write all the narratives and everything else. And she was like, yes. And I said, what's your success rate? 100%. She said, you're going to get it and on time. You're not going to have to wait and go through iterations. You're going to get it right the first time. And so I said, I want an unlimited funding 501c3. And she said, well, let's do it. And so I said, how much is it though? And so she told me, and I was like, it was way less than I was thinking in my mind, because that's how God comes in.
Right.
I mean, you have an idea what it should cost if you got blessed. Mm-hmm. And so I had a 501c3 6 months from the day I had that dream. We still ain't talk about that dream.
So let's turn the tables a little bit and let's talk about entertainment. Well, first, before we go, we want to talk about where you can get your book. We're going to do it now and then at the end as well. So how can people get your book?
They can get it at chartown.com. Let me see if I can lower this. You see it? Chartown.com.
All right, you guys, chartown.com. You got to get the book. I'm getting the book. I'm going to read the book and I'm going to come back and go live on IG with Chartown. Watch me.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's talk about entertainment. So when you stepped into that business, when you said, okay, I'm doing entertainment, you got in the business and you start working in the business. What was your first job in the business?
My first job happened shortly after my epiphany. And I talk about it in the book. I walked into a comedy club and let's just say I was working there 4 days later unexpectedly. Oh. And so I talk about in the book how I went from trying to buy a ticket to being having a major position in less than 4 days in the craziest way ever. When God moves in my life and he gives me the desires of my heart and exceeds, my expectations, the Bible says he'll bless you exceedingly and abundantly above what you ask or think. I went in there to buy a ticket because I wanted to have a meeting with the owner.
Right.
Learn. I'm still trying to learn. I'm trying to take notes on entertainment industry stuff. So I think I'm gonna start with comedy club owners and interview them and see if I can get some footing on what I'm supposed to be doing, because I still don't know my direction. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I wanted. I said, so my logic was go buy a ticket and ask for an interview. Get in there. Once you inside, who's the owner? Can I get to him? And can I? And that was my plan. It didn't go that way. And so 4 days later, I'm working there in a major capacity. And so after that, and I'm going to say this because I don't know if I put this in the book, but even after all of that, and I'm making top dollar, I'm making more than anybody probably in town.
Right.
Doing something way easier than anybody in town. You know what I mean? Because that's how God works. And so I said to my best friend, I said, they didn't even look at my resume. And I was like, I'm making top dollar. They didn't even look at my resume. They don't know the full capacity of what don't you have more than what you went in there to get? You are working in the entertainment industry and you don't even know how you got there. You complaining because they didn't look at your resume.
Is this where you meet Mike Epps and the rest of the comedians that you're connected to?
I started meeting comedians there at that comedy club. I probably met a good 50 or 60. And this is the irony. I didn't know anybody in the entertainment industry and they didn't know me. And so this is back in the, mid-90s, like 94, 95, something like that. And I asked this comedian, and I thanked her last year. After 20 something years and years of success, I finally caught back up with her. I didn't really know how to reach her. And so thanks to the power of Facebook, we reconnected. And I said, I need you to call me. And I gave her my phone number. I said, 20 something years ago, when I first walked into that comedy club and I first started doing stuff in the comedy industry, I met you within a month or so. And I said, you were one of the first women I met, besides my soror, Deborah Terry. I was like, oh, there are women out here doing this. And so I was just like, it was opening up. And so I asked you, I said, man, it's so many comedians, it's so many entertainers, and they all seem to know each other. It seems like there's this network of people. I said, how do you even meet people in this industry? How do people even get to know you? She said, first of all, she said, you have that business background, you got that smile. She said, just be you. She said, and the first time you help one comedian do something, or you work with one of them or do something, they're gonna talk, because
No
comedians talk.
return. Yep.
I was like, oh, you ain't work with her yet? Or you ain't do this yet? And that's how it happened. Or I would go by other comedy spaces, not even my show. I would go by other comedy spaces, just, networking. I started getting invited places. And I was seeing comedians cussing and acting a fool. I was like, what's wrong with you? They talking about they ain't gonna pay me, and they talking about this. And I was like, well, why wouldn't they pay you? You just performed. And they were like, because they said they ain't make enough money, but you should have gotten paid before. And so I started being like a champion even back then, but you're going to treat them right. You're going to pay them what you said you were going to pay them. So no one has ever worked with me, worked through me, me being their manager or whatever, that has not gotten paid. Everything they were entitled to. I don't play that. That's just being human. And I talk about all the time. You live in this industry, you work in this industry, whatever, but you don't lose the humanity of it all. That's right. And so if somebody's livelihood is on the line, you don't play with that. That's being human. People will say she'll help you for real. I've heard stuff like that over the years, or she knows everybody, but everybody know her too. You know what I mean? And so how people like name drop and do everything. If I don't know people, I'll tell you I don't know them. But if I say I know them, I know them. You know what I mean? There's no reason to lie or flex or anything like that. So I've just always tried to have integrity in how I treat people.
Yeah, what you put out is what you're going to get back. If you put out the good, you're going to get good. And I always live by that. Now, if I'm in a situation and people are not being like that, I remove myself, because I don't want to be like that. I feel like when you treat people good, they see it and they know, and they treat you.
But you know what? I'm going to say this for, I don't know who needs to hear it, honestly, but your blessings seldom come from those to whom you've been a blessing. So stop looking for direct reciprocal, activity happening. Well, I was there for you. And I hear people say that in relationships and business. I was there for you. That has nothing to do with anything. God decided to use you to be a blessing to that person, but it's coming, because that was just a seed planted. It's going to grow. Just stop looking over there. Because sometimes the wind blows the seed over there. There's no such thing as a wildflower. If a flower grows, a seed was planted. You just weren't there for the inception. So God works in a way where he blesses you beyond that which you have planted.
It just is how it works. And that's why he said, be of service to people, give and don't expect nothing in return. So when I'm giving of myself, it don't even have to be monetarily. When I'm giving of myself and I'm really helping people, I don't expect nothing back. I'm telling you, I've been in situations, I'm like, thinking, well, why won't nobody help me? I always help them. But it's because God said, you're to serve other people. I got you. Because in the long run, I'm going to show right up when it's time, right? So I have learned my lesson. Just give, don't expect nothing in return. And that's it.
I realized that all of my help comes from above. So you got to stop looking at what you think makes sense to help you. What you think is, I know he should be able to help me. Stop looking at all my help comes from above. God ordained everything that I have, my entire career. I can't explain it. I can't make sense of it. I can't make sense of when I sold this book, why they decided to support me. I was like, oh, I wrote a book. And they were like, you wrote a book. And DL was like, well, what we doing with the book? And I was like, huh? So he did drops for me. He's one of my mentors. I didn't expect any of that. He was really supposed to write the other foreword. I was like, I tried to call you, but I was on a schedule. And so he said, what you need? I said, well, you can do drops if you want to. All right, let's go do some drops.
Yeah.
So, and JB Smooth up top there. Yeah. I never would have imagined people, the outpouring of love and support, and Monique right there. I wouldn't have got Tori. The whole line of people you can't see that showed so much love and support.
I saw it on your YouTube. I was like, God, look at all these people. Dino Hughley, like all these people that support you. But that's a blessing, and that's just your blessing. After all the good that you put out, that's your blessing. So what do you have other than the book? What do you have going on currently in your life?
There's probably like 15 main things.
Are there a ton of main things? Which one you want to talk about?
Well, I continue to work with clients as much as I can remotely. So I'm working with a lot of my authors and playwrights because they're always writing and creating and getting ready to release books. So I'm able to do the administrative stuff, remotely, and my staff is able to work remotely on stuff. Also, I started producing 2 live stream shows. I started a live stream show. It is what it is, how men think about love, life, relationships, and everything.
I saw that. Yeah.
So that's basically a reboot of a radio show I created over 10 years ago. And it was so successful. So many entertainers, NFL players, NBA players, multi-platinum producers were coming through the radio thing. I woke up after I prayed one night and God said, it is what it is. I was like, that's my show. We've had a good time. Last night I had music legends on, like Damian Hall. Yeah, a little bit of everybody. Over 100 men have been on my show to date. And so it is, I don't know anybody who's ever done that. I don't know any woman who has ever sat down and had candid discussions, leave your celebrity at the door with men about love, life, relationships, and it flow the way my show flows, and that many men, 100. We still going. I haven't even scratched the surface.
I want to tell you that I'm putting you on my prayer list just because I feel like God is doing a great thing in your life, and I always have been, have been forever, and that everything just continues to grow. The book that it sells beyond measure continues to do good. And that I want you to know that you're my mentor from afar now. So I'm going to be watching you.
Thank you.
I'm going to be watching you and following you. And I'm going to be sharing your videos because I think that's important that we support one another, that, even though, you work in the business and the entertainment business, but why wouldn't I share what I think? Like, you got some good stuff for our lives that can impact lives for the greater good. Why aren't we sharing that content? So I will be following you, and I will make sure that my people get that book.
Thank God, there's somebody you want me to meet tonight. Can you let it happen in the next 10, 15 minutes? Because I'm really sleepy. I don't even know why I came back in. 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm praying this weird prayer, so I go in there. Oh, Char, bring over a bottle. So he brought over the bottle. I'm sitting there just sipping. 5 minutes later, he reappears with this gentleman. And so he said, Charmel, this is so-and-so. And I said, it's so nice to meet you. He said, I've heard a lot about you. I said, I hope it was good. And he said, it was amazing. And so he said, Char, this is the owner that you got tickets for 2 months ago. And so I didn't think about it because it was my friend. And he just said, he transferred over there. He wanted to impress one of his big bosses or whatever. And so I called in tickets I was in LA, and I called in tickets for this show in DC. And I guess it had been sold out for 2 months or more. And so they got him, front row seats, no line, no wait, walked him in and everything. And so he's like, who makes a phone call like that at a sold out show? I was like, sold out. But you don't think about it. But he said, do you want to have a book sign? Have you had a book signing? And I said, I had a sold out one in DC. He said, you want one here? I said, MGM? He was like, yeah. And so I said, yes. And so this is how God works. When I say that God orchestrates everything. I've just come from the Chris Rock show. There was nothing in there but my cell phone, no business card, no chapstick, no nothing. Just my cell phone was in my purse. I said, I'm so embarrassed. I don't have a business card or anything. He said, well, here's my cell phone number. Call me Monday and tell me what you're envisioning. And he said, I'll make it happen. And so that's how I ended up having the first book signing ever at the center of MGM.
I'm going to say thank you so much again for being here. I enjoyed this. I could talk to you forever. I enjoyed this conversation.
People say that, but I think that's a blessing.
And so we'll get back together once I get the book and read it. But in the meantime, much success to you. Get the book.
Yes, let me do my little flash again.
Don't forget, y'all. Don't forget. You guys, I'm going to get out of here for now. We're going to go. In the meantime, respect yourself and respect others. We are done. God bless.